Welcome to Chalice Unitarian Universalist Congregation. We are a community of diverse beliefs and experiences, nurturing the liberal religious spirit and united by our desire to grow in love and in service. Whoever you are, whomever you love, whatever your life's journey, you are welcome here. Whether you gather with us every Sunday, once or twice a year, or are here with us this morning for the first time, we are glad you are here. I'm Reverend Sharon Wiley, Chalice's minister. Our worship musician this morning is our music director, Tim McKnight. Welcome to this online worship service. Please notice on your menu, for those of us who are watching live through Zoom, that there's a button that says CC Live Transcript. That is our closed captioning service, and you can click on it to show the subtitle if you would like to see the closed captioning. You can also hide the subtitle if it's on and you want to turn it off. So since I can't hug you myself, let's all give ourselves a big hug of hello and welcome. I want to especially welcome those of you who are newcomers at Chalice. Towards the end of the service, there will be a link in the chat box for adding your name to our email list. Our weekly email is the best way to get information about the many online groups and activities we offer using Zoom. If you are new to Chalice and would like to learn more about the congregation, you are invited to stay in this Zoom room after the service ends for our newcomer chat using the chat box. Now, let's take a breath together.
We acknowledge that our service is taking place on the stolen territory of the Kumeyaay, meaning humans or people, and the Payamkawishim, meaning Western people. A land acknowledgement works to undo the intentional erasure of Indigenous people and to support the resilience and strength that all Indigenous people have shown. We acknowledge the original inhabitants as a first and critical step toward learning and working with Indigenous communities to secure meaningful partnership and inclusion in the stewardship and protection of their cultural resources and sacred homeland.
Now we light our chalice, the symbol of our Unitarian Universalist faith, a symbol of the best that we aspire to be. The flaming chalice was first used during World War II by the Unitarian Service Committee as a symbol of life-saving refuge for people fleeing persecution in Europe. May our chalice flame burn brightly, that all who are seeking may find us. Where you are sitting is sacred space, our worship space. Some of us in living rooms, in kitchens, some of us laying in bed, relaxed and comfortable, worshiping in pajamas. Some of us are sitting on patios, sipping coffee, eating breakfast. Some of us watching the recording later in the day or week, or listening in the car on the way to an outing. All this is our worship space now. All these places and all these homes, these are our chapel because we are the congregation, and it doesn't matter what room we are in or if we are in the same room. Our call this morning is the same as always. Let us worship together. In our Unitarian Universalist faith tradition, the time between Martin Luther King Jr. Day and Valentine's Day is known as the 30 Days of Love. It is a time to lift up the ways you use and many of our partner organizations are building and organizing by taking bold, courageous action for intersectional racial justice. There are ways to engage with and participate in the 30 Days of Love online. And here at Chalice, we are marking this time by singing Let There Be Peace on Earth these Sundays. This hymn is often sung at interfaith gatherings, and so we want to become more familiar with it. Please join in singing. Our Sunday worship is the shared spiritual practice of our community, and we tend to the congregation during this time by honoring our joys and sorrows. If you would like to share a joy or sorrow with the congregation this morning, now is the time for sharing in the chat box. These won't be spoken out loud. If you would like to send me a confidential note about your joy or sorrow, please email me. I'll put my email address in the chat box.
I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river, I've got peace like a river in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain, I've got joy like a fountain in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean, I've got love like an ocean in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow, I've got pain like an arrow in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops, I've got tears like the raindrops in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul. I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain, I've got strength like a mountain in my soul.
Our story is called Giraffes Can't Dance by Giles Andrea and Guy Parker Reese. Gerald was a tall giraffe whose neck was long and slim, but his knees were awfully crooked and his legs were rather thin. He was very good at standing still and munching shoots off trees, but when he tried to run around, he buckled at the knees. Now every year in Africa they hold the jungle dance, where every single animal turns up to skip and prance. And this year, when the day arrived, poor Gerald felt so sad, because when it came to dancing, he was really very bad. The warthogs started waltzing and the rhinos rock and rolled. The lions danced a tango that was elegant and bold. The chimps all did a cha-cha with a very Latin feel, and 8 baboons then teamed up for a splendid Scottish reel. Gerald swallowed bravely as he walked toward the floor, but the lions saw him coming and they soon began to roar. "Hey, look at clumsy Gerald," the animals all sneered. "Giraffes can't dance, you silly fool. Oh, Gerald, you're so weird." Gerald simply froze up. He was rooted to the spot. "They're right," he thought. "I'm useless. Oh, I feel like such a clot." So he crept off from the dance floor and he started walking home. He'd never felt so sad before, so sad and so alone. Then he found a little clearing and he looked up at the sky. The moon can be so beautiful, he whispered with a sigh. Excuse me, coughed a cricket, who'd seen Gerald earlier on. But sometimes when you're different, you just need a different song. Listen to the swaying grass and listen to the trees. To me, the sweetest music is those branches in the breeze. So imagine that the lovely moon is playing just for you. Everything makes music if you really want it to. With that, the cricket smiled and picked up his violin. Then Gerald felt his body do the most amazing thing. His hooves had started shuffling, making circles on the ground. His neck was gently swaying, and his tail was swishing round. He threw his legs out sideways, and he swung them everywhere. Then he did a backward somersault and leapt up in the air. Gerald felt so wonderful, his mouth was open wide. I am dancing! Yes, I'm dancing! I am dancing! Gerald cried. Then one by one, each animal who'd been there at the dance arrived while Gerald boogied on and watched him quite entranced. They shouted, "It's a miracle! We must be in a dream! Gerald's the best dancer that we've ever seen!" How did you learn to dance like that? Please, Gerald, tell us how. But Gerald simply twirled around and finished with a bow. Then he raised his head and looked up at the moon and stars above. We all can dance, he said, when we find music that we love. Each church year, I pick a topic for a 10-part sermon series for us to study deeply together. We call this our spirit study topic for the year. And this year we're working with a book called My Grandmother's Hands, Racialized Trauma and the Pathway to Mending Our Hearts and Bodies, written by trauma specialist Resmaa Menakem. Today is the 6th sermon in the series. You can find the earlier sermons in the series on Chalice's YouTube channel. We're in a section of the book, chapters 10 through 14, that's all about understanding how our bodies work in relationship to trauma and in relationship to each other. Menakem's emphasis in these chapters is teaching us how to keep ourselves grounded and settled, or centered. The word he uses is settled, in order to bring about positive change. You probably get the difference intuitively between settled and unsettled bodies, right? You can probably think of people whose very presence is calming, someone with a settled body. And we know unsettled bodies when we see them too. We could probably each tell a story of being near someone whose whole demeanor made us uncomfortable, made us want to get away. Menakem writes, gather together a large group of unsettled bodies, or assemble a group of bodies and then unsettle them, and you get a mob or a riot. This certainly makes me think of recent events. I'm sure I'm not the only one. He goes on, but bring a large group of settled bodies together, and you have a potential movement and potential force for tremendous good in the world. A calm, settled body is the foundation for health, for healing, for helping others, and for changing the world. When he writes about how to settle the body, he writes about all the things we would expect and have been talking about for months during this pandemic: getting enough sleep, eating well, drinking water, getting some exercise, enjoying simple pleasures, and cultivating a daily spiritual practice. He recommends 20 to 40 minutes of spiritual practice every day. He also provides many breath and body practices throughout the book, as well as sort of emotional reflection exercises, which is why I encourage you to get your own copy of the book. You won't be able to get the full impact of these practices just by listening to even a 10-part sermon series. There's just work to do each on our own. Talking about trauma, Menakem uses this language of clean pain and dirty pain. Clean pain is the experiences we have that we've processed and learned from, where we've metabolized them in his language. He writes, by walking into that pain, experiencing it fully and moving through it, you metabolize it and put an end to it. In contrast, dirty pain is pain that has not been faced and has not been healed. He writes, the alternative paths of avoidance, blame, and denial are paved with dirty pain. When people respond from their most wounded parts and choose dirty pain, they only create more of it, both for themselves and for other people. He adds, when white supremacists discuss race in America, many of their arguments and positions are expressions of dirty pain and forms of fighting, fleeing, or freezing, end quote. Our goal or hope in processing pain is to be able to stay present during uncomfortable situations, to not fight, flee, or freeze. The language I tend to use is to pay attention when we're having a disproportionate reaction to what's happening. Another highly technical term for this might be freaking out. So of course, there are times when fighting, fleeing, or freezing is the proportionate reaction, when there's an emergency and something dangerous is happening. So I don't mean that we aim to never respond that way. What we want to pay attention to is when we're having an emergency response to a situation that's not an emergency. Menakem tells us Black, white, and police bodies all need to learn to be more comfortable and settled with one another. End quote. This is the work of healing racialized trauma. As Menakem explains, I've discussed how a settled body helps other bodies it encounters to settle as well. Give bodies the right context and encouragement, and they will begin to harmonize as well. When, over time, enough bodies heal from historical, intergenerational, and personal trauma and learn to harmonize, that harmony can turn into a culture of resilience and flow, end quote. He says that if this sounds touchy-feely, it's because it is touchy-feely, because working with the body involves touching and feeling. But this work is meant to be a grounded kind of touchy-feely, not just warm fuzzies and smiley faces. So just like the practices he gave us in an earlier chapter, which I talked to you about in my previous sermon in the series, and sent a few out by email, he gives us some group practices we can do together to help harmonize our bodies. And you do these kinds of practices with people you know and trust. We're not going to walk into a room of people we don't know and feel comfortable enough to do practices like these and to feel that harmonization. And so again, as before, these are simple body practices. They're meant to feel good, not to raise anxiety or panic. If you have that kind of response, please stop what you're doing. And he lists some hypothetical ways we could just start to incorporate these group practices into our lives. And he gives one hypothetical example is before the sermon. So I thought we would do that one, which is to rub our bellies. I'm going to invite you to rub your belly for 15 seconds. It's going to seem like a long time, and we aren't used to rubbing our bellies. We're supposed to feel bad about our bellies, but let's not. Let's just touch them and love them. I'll count 15 seconds in my head. Don't forget to breathe. No judgment. It makes me think about, I think that's about 15 seconds. It makes me think about how our animals like to have their belly rubbed. That feels good. And it's also a sign of trust, right? To open their bellies to us. So I hope that practice felt good. And then I also need to name our pain, that we aren't together in the same room sharing this practice. And so our bodies aren't harmonized by sharing that practice together. Here in a book written just a few years ago in 2017, but still a time when we couldn't even imagine what we're living through now. Here we find some language for what is one of the particular pains of the pandemic. I know we feel the loss of being together. I've been very interested for science to help identify more accurately what it is that's so physically hard. Because we do get to see each other on Zoom. We're worshiping together. We see and hear each other at meetings. A few months ago, I had a socially distanced visit with my sister, my oldest sister. We sat outside on my patio and we kept our masks on the whole time. We didn't touch each other or hug. She was getting ready for a wedding and wasn't going to take any risks. And I felt so nourished by that time with her, so restored, just sitting 6 feet away from someone in person. Of course, part of it was the joy of being with my sister, but we talk on the phone, we talk on Zoom. We've seen each other that way, but being together, physically together, was different somehow. So I think Resmaa Menakem is talking about something very real that we don't have good language for yet. Something happens when our bodies get to be together, and when our bodies harmonize, it can be especially wonderful. Some of the activities he names: humming together, singing, of course, rocking back and forth together without even touching, just being in the same space together, line dancing, sitting silently in the same room, just breathing together. So this chapter, harmonizing with other bodies, is a list of things we can't do right now. And it helps identify what is so hard about the pandemic, why this being apart is so painful. Our bodies yearn to settle together, to harmonize together. That's part of what we miss about being together on Sunday mornings, the experience of being in a room together, having a shared experience, harmonizing our bodies and our voices. You're invited to join in singing.
Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. dance with me, oh my soul. Dance with me, dance with me, dance with me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul. Comfort me, comfort me, comfort me, oh my soul.
The Sunday offering is an expression of the generosity that makes our congregational life possible. As Buddhist teacher Sharon Salzberg writes, generosity is characterized by the inner quality of letting go or relinquishing. Being able to let go, to give up, to renounce, to give generously. These capacities spring from the same source within us. When we practice generosity, we open to all of these liberating qualities simultaneously. You are invited to text your donation to Chalice. If you haven't texted a donation before, know that once you text the amount, the dollar, the number signs, you'll get a reply with a link to follow to enter your credit card information. And after you've entered that information once when you've donated, you won't need to enter it again for subsequent donations. And if your Sunday donation is part of your pledge payment, please be sure to indicate the word pledge after the dollar amount. And finally, please remember that you can make a text donation at any time. The phone number will be on screen in a moment, and I'll also put it in the chat box. Please give generously. Please join in dedicating our offering with words of affirmation. May love be the spirit of this church. May the quest for truth be its sacrament and service be its prayer. To dwell together in peace, to seek knowledge in freedom, and to help one another in fellowship. This is our aspiration.
I hope you never lose your sense of wonder. You get your fill to eat, but always keep that hunger. May you never take one single breath for granted. God forbid love ever leave you empty-handed. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. I hope you dance. I hope you never fear those mountains in the distance. Never settle for the path of least resistance. Living might mean taking chances, but they're worth taking. Loving might be a mistake, but it's worth making. Don't let some hell-bent heart leave you bitter. When you come close to selling out, reconsider. Give the heavens above more than just a passing glance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, I hope you dance. Is a wheel in constant motion. I hope you dance alone. I hope you dance. Want to look back on the years I hope you dance have gone. I hope you still feel small when you stand beside the ocean. Whenever one door closes, I hope one more opens. Promise me that you'll give faith a fighting chance. And when you get the choice to sit it out or dance, dance. I hope you dance. I hope you dance. Is a wheel in constant motion. I hope you dance alone. I hope you dance. Wants to look back on the years I hope those tears have gone.
I'm taking some time off the next 2 weeks for rest. And I keep thinking about taking risks. Like I'm having a Zoom lunch with a friend tomorrow, and I thought maybe we should meet somewhere outside and eat lunch sitting far apart, which is considered a reasonable thing to do, and yet is not something we've been doing at all. And then I thought, don't blow it when we're so close to being able to be safer. And I also know that my friend would say no to the suggestion anyway. It's so great to know that people are being vaccinated, but just in case anyone here doesn't know, the vaccine becomes fully effective 2 weeks after the second dose. Fully effective means 95% effective. And people who have been vaccinated can still spread the virus. So even vaccinated folks will still need to wear a mask and keep distanced when visiting with people who aren't vaccinated. The goal of vaccination is for us, like 80% of the population to be vaccinated. That's what we need to achieve herd immunity. So we're closer to being safer, but we're still a ways away from anything like a return to normal life. But it's also been good to feel like the news is less upsetting. It's still my habit to check the news kind of compulsively throughout the day, and I'm still adjusting to the news being less. Like there's not a new headline every few hours. It's nice. I'm not sure how settled any of our bodies can feel after 11 months of a pandemic, but hopefully many of us are starting to feel more settled than we have for a while, as our government is in the hands of competent officials. Remember that list from Resmaa Menakem of how to care for the body: getting enough sleep, eating well, drinking water, getting some exercise, enjoying simple pleasures, and cultivating a daily spiritual practice. I love that he recommends 20 to 40 minutes of spiritual practice every day, and he's not a minister, so he's a trauma specialist. So that seems to me like, very good advice. By attending worship, by the way, you've just experienced an hour of spiritual practice today. So well done. Keep up the good work. Please join in singing.
Below me I feel no motion, standing on these mountains and plains, far away from the rolling ocean. Still my dry land heart can say, I've been sailing all my life now, never harbor or port have I known. The wide universe is the ocean I have traveled, and the earth is my blue boat home. Sun, my sail, and moon, my rudder, as I ply the starry seas, leaning over the edge in wonder, casting questions into the deep, drifting here with my ship's companions, all we kindred pilgrim souls, making our way by the lights of the heavens in our beautiful blue boat home. I give thanks to the waves upholding me, hail the great winds urging me on, read the infinite sea before me, sing the sky
Our closing words come from Reverend Joanna Fontaine Crawford. May you go forward knowing that life is fragile and a gift, that you are lovable and loved, and you are not alone. Love and blessings to each of you. Blessed be. You're invited to close our time together by singing the well, and then we have an announcement about the start of our auction. It's finally time. After that announcement, newcomers are invited to stay here in the worship for a newcomer chat. Everyone is invited to coffee hour. There will be a breakout room in the coffee hour for learning more about how to bid using the online auction. So if you'd like to learn more about bidding on the auction, come to the coffee hour.